Hello there, welcome to another informative edition of Jamaica Magazine. I'm Adrian Atkinson. In the show today, the Justice Minister speaks on solving the backlog in the court system. Also, we'll show you some of the talent that was on display at this year's Melo-Go-Round. But before that, as we look forward to celebrating with our athletes participating in the 2016 Olympic Games, we'll show you some of the local foods that could be driving their success. All that and more right after this.
We have championed e-learning in Jamaica, provided state-of-the-art technology in over 200 educational institutions, developed materials for CSEC, piloted the Tablets in Schools project in 38 schools, including infant and primary, and trained thousands of teachers in technology integration. We are e-Learning Jamaica Company Limited, ELJAM, an agency of the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology. Visit our website, www.elearnja.org.
Justice, truth be ours forever is one of the principles highlighted by our national anthem. But justice delayed is justice denied. The Minister of Justice is aiming to ensure that no Jamaican is denied justice because of delays in the system. In today's Issues and Answers, Justice Minister Delroy Chuck speaks about clearing up the backlog of cases in our courts and much more.
Welcome to Issues and Answers. I'm Ian Boyne. Our focus today is on justice. We have with us the Minister of Justice, the Honourable Delroy Chuck. We'll be putting to him some of the issues we are sure you want to have clarified. We thank you for your company. Minister, good to have you.
Very happy to be with you again.
On the show. I know this issue of the backlog in the court system is one which has occupied your mind and is a major focus of your ministry. What are the major initiatives to deal with the backlog of cases in our system?
Well, let me say this is my major focus, certainly over this year, and as long as I'm there at the ministry, will be my focus until we can get cases and justice delivered in a timely manner. The situation now where cases are lagging for years, sometimes over 5 years, we must deal with. My hope is that by sometime in 2017, no case should be in the court over 5 years. And certainly my hope is that by 2017, perhaps into 2018, that no case should be in the courts over 4 years. And by 2020, my hope is that no case should be over 3 years. Now, I am not going to blame any of the stakeholders in the system. There's enough blame to go around. And certainly in the Ministry of Justice, we have a duty to provide the necessary resources to make sure that the stakeholders, such as the judges and the prosecutors, that there are enough to try cases. At the same time, we need to put in place more courts. So at the moment in the Supreme Court, we only have 4 courts for criminal matters. We have more for civil matters, but let's deal with the criminal matters. 4 courts, not enough. My hope is that by next year, we should have at least 8 courts, preferably 10 courts in the Supreme Court downtown, trying cases. Having said that, you may have 8 or 10 courts, then we need more judges, because you need more judges to try the cases, and we need more prosecutors, which mean more support staff in terms of secretaries, in terms of persons assisting in the prosecutor's office, also in the judges' chambers and assisting the judges. So resources will have to be pooled to ensure that if we have 8 or 10 cases, courts trying criminal cases, that they can actually come about with more cases being tried. We're working on that. But with all the resources in the world, the number of cases in the Supreme Court and in the parish courts across the island, we will never be able to do all of them.
What's the numbers we're talking about now, Minister?
Well, you take in the Supreme Court, each term, they carry over about 500 cases. Now, bear in mind, with 4 courts, you can't try more than about 4 cases, average of maybe 10 cases per month or per week, because one
and they carry
case,
over 500 cases.
That's right. One case could last 3 weeks. Some cases last months. But once a case is started, it usually lasts 3-4 days. So you're talking about less than 10, or an average of about 10 cases per 2 weeks or per month sometimes. I have no doubt that we have to develop a system where many of the persons who are charged and the cases, the files have been completed, even when the files have not been completed, that we have a process whereby plea bargaining, where the defense counsel and the prosecutor can look at the case and develop some understanding what would be an appropriate sentence and take it to a judge. We have in mind to put in place a plea bargaining judge. So let us say in the Supreme Court, you could have a plea bargaining judge who would listen to the prosecutor and the defense counsel and come to some decision what would be an appropriate sentence if a guilty plea was entered. Now, that plea bargaining judge must never or will not be the judge to try the case if, in fact, there is no agreement. But if there's an agreement, then
matter can be dealt with
right away. And I say without fear of contradiction,
makes sense,
that if the accused participated via his attorney, his defense counsel, and he knows that if he's convicted, a sentence is in excess of 10 or 15 years, and he knows that his defense counsel could bargain with the prosecutor before the judge and get 5 years instead of 10 years, there's a real likelihood that he may accept,
because right now in our plea bargaining system, the defense counsel is not represented.
The defense counsel is not represented at all.
And you are proposing?
I'm proposing that he engages with the prosecutor, with the judge, in a sentence to be imposed. The legislation needs to be changed. At the moment, there is on the book what is known as plea bargain legislation, but it only allows where the accused gives information to the prosecutor to be able to convict other persons or in some other way. That's too restrictive. I would like to say
a broader
situation where in any case, in the parish courts, in the Supreme Court, a case is there, you know that there's going to be a period of a plea bargain judge to listen to the case if the party is willing to plead guilty, with the understanding that his defense counsel can say, if I get less than 5 years, I'm willing to plead guilty. If I get a non-custodial sentence for minor offenses, I'm willing to plead guilty. Even for minor offenses, just like in the ganja convictions now, we may even offer the carrot that the conviction will not be recorded if it is a minor offense. But always in this plea bargaining process, it will be under jurisdiction of the judge, and the judge must have the final say.
That seems an excellent way to cut down on the number of cases. But doesn't it represent a kind of softening? Would this be an incentive to people to just do wrong, thinking that they can get off easily? When we come back, we put that question to the minister. We take a break on Issues and Answers.
Motorists, know your rights as road users. If you're stopped by the police in a road check, the police have the right to ask for your driver's license and vehicle documents. If you don't have the documents on you, you can ask for 5 days to provide them at a convenient police station. If you don't have vehicle insurance, you can be prosecuted and face the court. If you fail to renew the registration license, the police are entitled to seize your vehicle. If the police wish to search your vehicle, they should tell you the reasonable grounds for wanting the search. If you are given a ticket, sign it only if you plan to pay the fine and not contest the charge in court. And please be reminded, children under 18 years must wear a seatbelt, even if they are seated in the back. Know your rights. Knowledge of the traffic road code makes it easier to work with the police as they do their job to make the road safer for you and everyone else.
Welcome back to Issues and Answers. Minister of Justice, the Honorable Delroy Chuck, is speaking to us about initiatives to cut down on the backlog of cases in the courts. This is one of the things which are making our justice system not deliver the kinds of outcomes that we want. And the minister has some ideas as to how to improve the justice system. And I'd raise, Minister, at the break, the possible objection of some that, why, this is kind of a softening things, or we need to toughen things.
Not at all.
Yeah.
First of all, we will put in place very short, in fact it's already there, but it's to be publicly acknowledged, sentencing guidelines. So you will have sentencing guidelines, and certainly a guilty plea may well be at the lower end of a sentence. What is more, I would also propose that victims or the families of victims should have a say, so that the prosecutor should really consult with the investigating officer and maybe with the victims to say the accused would like to plead guilty. What would be your position on this? And get some understanding, the sentiment. Indeed, we have just presented, and it was just passed in Parliament, restorative justice bill. Now, with restorative justice, it's a situation in which the offender is willing to say, yes, I'm guilty. The victim will say, I'm willing to forgive the offender. And based on that, some understanding can be reached between the victim and the offender at pre-trial case, at trial stage, so that even at trial stage, if the victim is willing to forgive and really say, I understand and I'm willing to make up with the offender, because most crimes, are domestic.
Yes,
the offender is known to the victim and vice versa. So to the extent that one is willing to admit his guilt and wrong in the engagement, and the victim is willing to forgive, then you can see immediately that the judge is put in a position to impose a sentence which will not only extend mercy, but will in fact be the due justice in the case, especially if the victim is taken into consideration. So I'm not putting this plea bargaining and this restorative justice as something that will be soft or will not send the right signal. In all of these situations, it's a case where you will consider the feelings of the victims and the public interest, because the public interest will always have to be taken into consideration. What is more, if it is a murder case, let us say it's a murder case or a manslaughter case, depending on the nature and gravity of the circumstances, there's no doubt that in many of these cases, 15 years, 20 years would be the norm. So that it would be unlikely that you plead guilty and get a suspended sentence or a non-custodial. I mean, then the plea bargaining would fall into disrepute. So defense counsel will have to understand and say to the accused, you have been charged with murder. If you plead guilty, the normal sentence is going to be 20 or 30 years, and you have to serve for 15 years.
So for the most serious crimes,
there's no doubt it's going to be a
strong
prison sentence.
punishment would remain.
The question is the length of the sentence.
That's right.
Would 8 years be acceptable to the accused? Instead of you going to trial and you're there for weeks, you're hold up the court for many years because it's on the list. So to the extent you say to all defense counsel, here's a plea bargaining situation, here's the sentencing guidelines that the judges would have put down. Are you willing, you urge defense counsel to encourage their clients to go before a plea judge with a view to pleading guilty, and hopefully, I have no doubt, more than half the cases could be resolved.
Yes.
And then you have those really serious cases of contention where a judge might say, this case is so grave that if you plead guilty, you get in the maximum. And the accused might say, well, I'm willing to stand my chance.
But the fact is that the vast majority of cases which clog up the courts are not those most serious cases, are some things which could easily be dispensed with.
When you go into the parish courts, they're clogged up with stealing, shoplifting, I mean, all sorts of minor matters where, to be frank with you, a guilty plea could easily come about with a fine and non-custodial sentence. But the opportunity is not there for bargaining. And you see, an accused person, through his defense counsel, should be given the opportunity to bargain and sentence. And by the way, Ian, this is done informally. I mean, when I was active at the bar, I used to take those positions. I literally say, when I look at a case, if this case is so strong against me, and I know that don't care how I fight it, I'm going to lose.
Yes. You would go and talk to the judge?
I would go and talk to the prosecutor and the judge with a view to looking at sentence. And invariably, especially in the then resident magistrate's
get a
court,
reasonable response.
usually, they say, if you plead guilty, we'll consider non-custodial. Because in the parish codes, usually they're minor matters, and you know, a non-custodial sentence is appropriate. But I would like to extend and put in the legislation the possibility, at the discretion of the judge, that in minor matters you don't record the offense. Because once you record the offense, it goes against you in terms of jobs, in terms of visas, and it remains with you for a long time.
If the offense is not recorded, that would give out incentive for the person to plead guilty.
Absolutely.
Because the person would know that there would be no repercussions.
Absolutely. So this is something that I'm hoping to engage the public with a legislation over the next few months. As I see, the legislation is there, but it is too restrictive. I want to open it up, make it broader, so that the defense counsel, the accused, can be a part of the bargaining in terms of the sentence. Now, in civil trials, it's clogged up with cases that have gone on for years. Now, in the Supreme Court, it's mandatory that once a civil case, that you have case management and it goes to alternative dispute resolution. About 40% of the matters are settled at alternative dispute resolution. I'd like to see a higher percentage. In other words, you know, these civil cases tie up millions of dollars, billions of dollars. And the country needs these billions of dollars to get into the system to create jobs and economic growth. So I really would like to see more of these civil cases settled, and I would like to see more of these cases being tried on a timely basis. But if we can move out some of these minor matters, use alternative dispute resolution more broadly to resolve some of these cases, then at least more time will be available to have these cases being tried. But I have a number of proposals in terms of increasing the number of judges.
Yes. Minister, there's so much to talk about. We can't do it in one program, so we're going to bring you back next week because we want to talk about those other proposals. Minister of Justice, Honorable Delroy Trupp, with some really exciting initiatives to deal with the improvement in the justice system. I mean, justice is so critically aligned to security. We can't deal with the crime problems. We can't deal with the issues of security unless we effectively deal with justice. Next week, the minister will be back to talk to us. Until that time, Ian Bourne wishing you a pleasant day.
Our athletes are gearing up to participate in their respective sports in the Olympic Games. Did you know that they have their own Jamaican chef who is providing them with mouth-watering Jamaican foods? Our athletes love their local food, and so should you. Local foods are nutritious. Plus, when you buy local, you're supporting the country's economy.
The Jamaicans are running away with the event. Can Trinidad and Tobago take the second spot? Asafa Powell, Jamaica, gold, 37.10, world record!
Born and fed in Jamaica, homegrown athletes sustained by the foods of the soil, enriched to reach international heights of glory.
This is a fabulous moment in Jamaican and Caribbean track and field history.
an agricultural sector steeped in a tradition of excellence, ripe for expanded production, energized to tap into new markets. A nation of champions. Food. For most, that probably means the broad label for just about every edible item we humans consume. Now, Jamaicans fully agree to this, but in the lingua of the island, food is also a specific term for the side dishes that accompany the main course of Jamaican meals. You might also hear them called ground or grung provisions: yam, potato, sweet or Irish, dasheen, cocoa, cassava, and others that are staples of the island's agricultural output. Farmers, supported by government and strong private groups, plant and harvest these crops for the discerning Jamaican consumer and a reliable export market. As the world marvels at the lightning speed of the likes of Usain Bolt and Veronica Campbell-Brown, many have asked, is it in the food? Perhaps the yellow yam?
969.
When we roast the yellow yam, when we roast the yellow yam, and we slice it in a two, and we slice it in a two.
The skin is brown, sometimes black, and some say scaly. Peel away the outer layer and get to the heart of its starchy goodness. There you'll find fulfillment and a taste that is as distinctive as the indescribable talent of our trailblazing athletic stars. More importantly, in the heart of our yams are essential nutrients for healthy living: vitamins C and B6, potassium, manganese, fiber, and iron. These nutrients converge in several varieties of the Jamaican yam, a tuber with off-white, purple, white, yellow, and sometimes red flesh, depending on the variety. For every type of yam, there is a uniquely Jamaican name, like renta, yampi, moonshine, or afu. Whatever the name, they're all edible, just so long as you cook them first. And with thousands of acres of fertile land, yam production is an island-wide vocation in Jamaica. But you might be surprised, or not, to know that the most popular yam-producing parish, Trelawney, is also the home of the world's fastest man.
Corrected to 969. The relax. Usain Bolt. Tremendous running by this man.
Daylight come and me want go home. Work all night.
From jerk to curry recipes, Jamaican cooking is all about the spices, sourced right on the island. With the support of the state entity responsible for managing all things agricultural, the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, Jamaica's spice producers are on the verge of stamping a bolder mark on the competitive international industry, with many programs unfurling to increase the production of traditional spices like ginger, turmeric, nutmeg, and pimento, and non-traditional spices such as hot peppers and onion. And the possibilities are bountiful. Take ginger and turmeric, for example. Both grow with relative ease almost anywhere on the island. In fact, travel to some places in Jamaica and you can find turmeric growing wild, unfettered by any environmental condition that could stunt its growth. Whether for use as a condiment, for its healing properties, or simply for coloring, consumers worldwide can't seem to get enough turmeric. Global trade in turmeric has been trending up, and so have prices. As for Jamaican ginger, it has long been considered among, if not the best in the world. Current global demand for Jamaican ginger is estimated at 21,000 metric tons in its fresh form and 4,200 tons dried, and there's room for growth. Jamaica is a tiny giant in the world of agro-processed foods. Island producers are dishing out big, unique flavors, employing ingenuity and utilizing the support of state agencies to steadily eke out more of the international market for these goods. Jamaican companies like Central Food Packers are making a mark on this agricultural offshoot, exporting quality canned, bottled, and baked foods to markets in North America, the United Kingdom, Canada, and the Caribbean. Included in the mix are mild to spicy hot sauces, jams and jellies, a must if you want to proclaim your Jamaicanness. Ackee, delivered to you in a can, and for a bit of green delight, callaloo canned in brine. Then there are some unique Jamaican spreads for your breads and biscuits, like a dab of Solomon Gundy or a spoonful of delicious mango, sorrel or tamarind chutney. And let's not forget the roots wines. Jamaica's value-added agro-processors are engaged in other sweet pursuits. Companies like Honeykiss are churning out all-natural honey confections. As they'll tell you, and you can taste for yourself, pure Jamaican wildflower honey is infused with just a choops of natural unique fruits, vegetables and spices, ginger, Blue Mountain coffee, pimento, allspice, Scotch bonnet pepper. Sweet, aromatic, rich, strong are entirely inadequate labels. Have a taste of authentic Jamaican honey, and what you'll get is a pure, honest flavor, aroma and taste, and medicinal benefits that make healthy living absolutely enticing.
A little more, I and I rope in, go rubber dub it, wanna I will lick a scene.
A bounty of Jamaican talent was on display at the recently held Mellow Go Round. Here are the highlights.
The boy give me a shock. Me tell him, say, answer him cousin, them saying, oh, they. And ask him how him gets in on. Hear him, no? Oh, Jolie. Me now start feel sorry for the poor bad lucky soul. For me think same go a foreign land, go catch bad foreign coal. Me think him got a bad sore throat. But as him chat go on, me got to find out his foreign twang. The boy was a put on.
Here's our quote of the week. Try to make at least one person happy every day. If you cannot do a kind deed, speak a kind word. If you cannot speak a kind word, think a kind thought. Count up, if you can, the treasure of happiness that you would dispense in a week, in a year, in a lifetime. We've come to the end of Jamaica Magazine for this Sunday. Thanks for spending time with us. Remember to keep up to date with the latest government information. Join us online at jis.gov.jm or watch our programs on our YouTube channel. Be sure to check out our other social media platforms. I am Adrian Atkinson. Thanks for watching and have yourselves a great evening.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.